Maxton Hall Season 3. The final chapter is almost here, and everything Ruby Bell worked for is now hanging by a single thread. The trailer just dropped, the release window is confirmed, and what it reveals about Episode 1 will leave you absolutely speechless. Let's be real, no show in recent memory has hit the way Maxton Hall has. From the moment Ruby Bell walked through the gates of that elite private school on a scholarship, barely holding her world together, and crashed headfirst into the universe of James Beaufort, something electric happened. Prime Video had a phenomenon on its hands. The series became the most-watched international original ever on the platform, hitting #1 in nearly 100 countries. And now, after everything fans have been through, 2 seasons of heartbreak, hope, betrayal, and that gut punch of a Season 2 finale, the final chapter is finally coming. Season 3 of Maxton Hall. The world between us is on the way, and the energy surrounding it right now is absolutely unlike anything this show has seen before. But before we get into what Season 3 is bringing, we have to talk about where Season 2 left things, because that cliffhanger did not give anyone peace of mind. Ruby was expelled from Maxton Hall. Let that sink in. The girl who sacrificed everything, her social life, her comfort, her heart, to earn a spot at that school and secure her path to Oxford, was thrown out. And the cruelest part? The evidence pointed directly at James. A photo from his laptop, one he stored without thinking twice about it, ended up in the hands of the principal and destroyed the future Ruby had been building brick by brick since the day she arrived. She didn't just lose her scholarship. She lost her dream. And just like that, the life she had been carefully constructing collapsed overnight. Now, the official Season 3 plot synopsis from Prime Video makes it brutally clear what Episode 1 is walking into. Ruby is on the edge. All evidence points to James as the reason she was expelled, and that is a slap in the face that doesn't just threaten her Oxford dream. It puts their entire love story to a severe test. For the first time in the series, it's not just outside forces pulling these two apart. It's the weight of what happened between them, the question of trust, the silence where answers should be, and the very real possibility that Ruby cannot forgive what she believes James allowed to happen to her. Their worlds, as Prime Video itself puts it, couldn't be further apart. And not everything is as it seems. What makes Season 3 feel so different from what came before is the stakes. In Season 1, we watched Ruby and James fall into each other against all odds, against class lines, against family expectations, against every wall between them. In Season 2, we watched those walls come crashing down in the worst possible way, and yet they still found a way back to each other. But Season 3 is operating on a completely different level. This isn't just about romance anymore. This is about identity. It's about whether Ruby can rebuild herself after being dismantled by a system she was never fully welcomed into. It's about whether James, for all his money and privilege and power within those halls, can actually do something meaningful with it. The question the show is really asking in Season 3 is not whether Ruby and James love each other. The question is whether that love is strong enough to survive the damage that's already been done. The season is based on Save Us, the third and final book in Mona Caston's best-selling trilogy, and it is being described as the grand finale of this love story. Author Mona Caston's novels have always carried a deeply emotional weight, and the writers at Prime Video have proven across 2 seasons that they understand how to honor that weight while also making bold choices that diverge from the source material when the story demands it. Season 3 is written by the same team that built this show from the ground up, head writer and executive producer Celine Yildirim returning alongside Sandra Stockman, Marlene Melchior, Katharina Junk, and Eileen Cochler. Director Martin Schreier is back, behind the camera. This is the same creative engine, fully committed to delivering a finale worthy of everything fans have invested in this show. And here is something that should give every fan of this series a reason to breathe just a little easier. Damien Harding himself sent a message ahead of Season 3. He looked straight at the camera and said, "And this is important, that Maxton Hall is a reminder that the only thing more powerful than hate is love." And then he asked if someone could just tell the fans there will be a happy ending. That is not the kind of statement you make about a show heading toward tragedy. That is James Beaufort himself, stepping outside the fiction for just a moment, telling you that Ruby and James are going to be okay. But the road to okay is going to be long, messy, and emotionally devastating before it gets there. So let's talk about what episode 1 of season 3 is actually setting up, because the pieces on the board right now are more complicated than they have ever been. Ruby is out. James is still inside those walls. And the distance between them is not just physical, it is emotional, psychological, and rooted in a kind of hurt that doesn't heal overnight. Based on everything we know from the official synopsis, the first look footage, and the source material, episode 1 is going to open on a Ruby who is barely holding herself together. She spent years working toward Oxford. She built her entire identity around being the girl who earned her place in a world that didn't want to give it to her. And now that identity has been stripped away by a photograph, a single image that someone weaponized with precision and coldly handed to the one person who could do the most damage with it. The question of who actually sent that photo is one of the central mysteries driving season 3 forward, and episode 1 is going to plant the seeds of that unraveling. In the books, it was Cyril who sent the photo, motivated by his obsession with Lydia and his desire to blow up anything standing between him and a chance to get her back. But the show has consistently made bolder, messier choices than the books, and season 2 heavily implied that Mortimer had his hands in this. We watched him use James's computer. We saw that look on his face. Not guilt, not hesitation, just cold calculation. A man who controls everything and everyone in his orbit, making one more move to keep his empire exactly the way he wants it. And Elaine cannot be counted out either. She wants James. She has made that clear. And Ruby being expelled removes the one person standing in the way of that. What makes this storyline so compelling is that none of these people are operating out of nowhere. Every single one of them has a motive, a history, and a willingness to cause damage to protect what they want. Mortimer Beaufort is a man who destroyed Ruby's family's bakery without blinking. He has used his wealth and his connections like weapons for as long as we have known him. Cyril has always been a wild card, unpredictable and emotionally volatile when it comes to Lydia. And Elaine has been circling James with an intensity that goes way beyond casual interest. Episode 1 is going to force Ruby to sit inside all of that uncertainty, not knowing who pulled the trigger, not knowing who she can trust, and genuinely unsure whether the boy she loves is someone she should be running toward or running from. And then there is Lydia. Because while Ruby's world is collapsing, Lydia Beaufort is carrying a secret of her own that is about to blow the entire Beaufort family wide open. She is pregnant with Graham's child. Graham, who was her teacher. Graham, who has now been fired from Maxton Hall. The official synopsis confirms there will be a full conclusion to Lydia and Graham's storyline in season 3, and episode 1 is likely where that time bomb starts ticking louder. When Mortimer finds out, and he will find out, the fallout is going to be catastrophic. This is a man who has spent his entire life building a reputation, a brand, an image of the perfect, powerful family. His daughter being pregnant by a fired schoolteacher is the kind of scandal that does not just embarrass Mortimer Beaufort. It threatens everything he has built. And that leverage, when it finally gets used, could be the very thing that begins to dismantle his control over everyone around him. The first look footage that Prime Video released tells its own story. There is a shot of Ruby back in her Maxton Hall uniform, and that detail matters more than it might seem at first glance. If Ruby is back in uniform, that means at some point in the season, she gets back into that school. James would not rest until that happened. The synopsis makes that explicit. Ruby and James do everything they can to save her graduation. But episode 1 is not that moment. Episode 1 is the before. It is Ruby sitting with the wreckage, trying to figure out her next move while the people who caused this walk those halls completely untouched. That contrast between Ruby locked out and Mortimer still in control is going to be the emotional engine of everything that follows. There is also the matter of what this expulsion means beyond just Oxford. Ruby has always existed at the edge of two worlds, her family's world, modest and real and full of love, and the world of Maxton Hall, cold and polished and built on secrets. She never fully belonged in the second world, and the people who knew that used it against her the moment they needed to. Episode 1 is going to ask a hard question. Was any of it worth it? Was the sacrifice, the loneliness, the constant performance of fitting in, was it worth everything Ruby gave up to be there? And the answer is not going to come easy. Because on one side of that question is Oxford, her future, everything she dreamed about. And on the other side is James Beaufort, who kept a photo on his laptop that was used to ruin her, whether he meant for that to happen or not. The emotional complexity here is exactly what makes Maxton Hall so much more than a standard young adult romance. It never lets its characters off the hook easily. It never lets love be a simple fix for complicated damage. And Season 3, Episode 1 is clearly committed to honoring that tradition. Ruby is not going to smile and forgive. James is not going to show up with a perfect speech and have everything reset. This is going to be a slow, painful, real reckoning, the kind that tests whether two people actually belong together or whether they were always just a beautiful collision waiting to end. Now let's talk about the release, because the wait is almost over and the timeline is becoming very real. Filming for Maxton Hall Season 3 wrapped in December 2025, with Prime Video releasing first-look images confirming the entire cast was back on set and the production had officially crossed the finish line. Damien Hardung himself posted on Instagram, captioning the wrap announcement with the words, "That's it. Thank you for 3 wonderful seasons." That kind of farewell energy from the lead actor tells you everything about the emotional weight this final season is carrying behind the scenes. The people who made this show understand what it means to the audience. They know what Ruby and James represent to millions of viewers around the world. And they went into these final episodes with that responsibility sitting on their shoulders. Post-production has been moving forward steadily, and based on the April 2026 first-look footage that Prime Video dropped, steamy, intense, and full of emotional charge, the promotional machine is now in motion. The confirmed release window points to 2026, with strong signals pointing toward a second half of the year premiere on Prime Video. For context, Season 1 premiered in May 2024, Season 2 arrived in November 2025, and Season 3 is following that same pattern of careful, deliberate rollout. Prime Video does not rush Maxton Hall. They treat it like the global event it actually is. And given that Season 2 topped the platform's charts in nearly 100 countries during its launch week, including in the United States, the United Kingdom, and Germany, the pressure to deliver a season finale worthy of that audience is enormous. What we know about the cast returning only adds to the anticipation. Harriet Herbig-Madden and Damien Hardung are back as Ruby and James, and they are bringing everyone with them. Sonia Weiser returns as Lydia. Thudja Van Hout is back as Mortimer, which means the man audiences love to hate is going to have his full reckoning this season. Ben Felipe returns as Cyril, and given his central role in the photo mystery, his presence in Season 3 is going to carry enormous weight. Eli Riccardi is back as Elaine. Justice Reisner returns as Alistair, Govinda Gabriel as Kesh, Runa Grainer as Ember, and Andrea Guo as Lynn. The supporting relationships in this show have always been one of its quiet strengths, and the official Season 3 details confirm that the emotional chaos in the friendships between Ember, Ren, Alistair, and Kesh is going to get a full, satisfying exploration this season. This is not just a Ruby and James finale. It is a finale for everyone who found their people inside those walls. And then there is Mortimer's downfall because it is coming, and Season 3 is where it happens. This is a man who has controlled everything and everyone for 3 seasons. He broke Ruby's family. He used James as an extension of his empire rather than as a son. He treated Lydia's life like a variable in his business calculations. And now, with Lydia's pregnancy, with James finally pushing back, with his aunt's suspicions about the altered will, and with the truth about the photo circling closer and closer to the surface, Mortimer Beaufort is running out of room. The walls that he built to protect himself are the same walls that are going to close in on him. And when it finally happens, when all of it unravels publicly, the satisfaction for viewers who have watched this man operate without consequence is going to be immense. This is the season where the powerful finally answer for what they did to the powerless. But the heart of Season 3, the part that will stay with audiences long after the finale credits roll, is Ruby's journey back to herself. She came into Maxton Hall with a dream and a spine of steel, and she is going to leave it on her own terms. The book gives us a glimpse of where she ends up, back in school, finishing her exams, getting into Oxford, building a future with James that is built on honesty and choice rather than chaos and compromise. A weekend trip to Oxford, an apartment hunt, a future where both of them get to be exactly who they are. James walking away from the Beaufort Empire to pursue journalism on his own terms. Ruby thriving at the university she fought her entire young life to reach. That is not just a happy ending. That is a statement. That is the show saying, the girl who is never supposed to belong anywhere found exactly where she belonged, and nobody could take that from her permanently. And James Beaufort, who started this series as the arrogant heir who seemed like he had everything, ends it as someone who chose love and integrity over legacy and control. That transformation, across 3 seasons, is one of the most complete character arcs in recent young adult television. He is not the same person who cornered Ruby in that hallway in episode 1 of season 1. And Ruby is not the same girl who kept her head down and hoped no one would notice her. They changed each other. They saved each other. And season 3 is the chapter where that story gets the ending it has always deserved. This is it. The final season of one of the most beloved shows on the planet is almost here, and everything, every sacrifice, every fight, every impossible moment Ruby and James survived, has been building toward this. Maxton Hall Season 3 is not just a season of television. It is a conclusion. It is a promise being kept. And if you have been on this journey since the very beginning, you already know that this show has never let you down when it matters most. If this breakdown gave you all the chills and got you even more hyped for what is coming, do me a favor. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel so you never miss a single breakdown, and drop your thoughts in the comments below. Are you ready for Ruby and James to finally get everything they deserve? Because season 3 is almost here, and it is going to be everything.